She is now Ellen Degeneres.
Good day, everyone. This is our first show way back 2021, I think. And yay! So today we will have a talk about historical and legal foundation of education. And I invited some important guests that will further give information about this topic. So let me introduce first. We have a history professor from Live in Harvard University. Let's welcome Professor Jason Alele. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Hello, viewers.
And we have Senator Joe Permitias. Good day to you, Senator. And lastly, we have two future educators, Ms. Solian and Ms. Silvano. Hi there. Professor Alele, can you give us some information about the history of education? What can you say about it?
Okay, good day, viewers. This time I will talk about the historical foundation of education. So they use oral tradition, so they educate the children through education in ancient Africa and Asia. So their education is formal education. So this is by through their priest, and their teaching is based on sacred texts, science, philosophy, grammar, poetry, and religion. Education in ancient Greece. So the education is to cultivate civic responsibility and identify with the city-state. So there are two states in ancient Greece. These are the Athenians and the Spartans. So the education in ancient Rome. So the Romans are the imitators of the Greeks, so they imitate the teaching of the Greeks. And now ancient Jewish education, so we have the Torah. So the Torah is the law of God revealed through Moses, and they are focused on holiness. And they believe that the real center of education is home. So medieval education. So we have the monasticism. We have also the scholasticism. Their aims is all about reason, faith, and intellectual discipline. So you have the last one, the guild system. So now let's proceed to the education during Renaissance. So, and their contribution is an emphasis in literacy, knowledge, excellence, and style. So education during Protestant Reformation. So their aims is to cultivate a sense of commitment to a particular religion and general literacy. So now to the educational theory in the 17th century. So we have the universal knowledge, also known as Panslafism, and the tabula rasa by John Locke, so which is learning from experience, and we have the practical learning. So education during the Enlightenment. So their teaching is all about reasoning and critical thinking. So they teach civic education, social reform, and improvement. So during 19th century, the primary education was provided mainly by the church for the children of poor parishioners. So now let's proceed to national education system. So we're in the European organized national education system, and the Americans based on the European. Let's go to 20th century. So in the 20th century, we have these three concerns for the development of child, science, and society. So to the last part, we have the political influence. In the developing nations, especially to the Asia and Africa, we have the UNESCO that attempts to put every child in the world into school and to eliminate illiteracy. So as a whole, foundation are the forces that influence the minds of curriculum developers, which affect the content and structure of the curriculum. This is based on Shigo 2015. So historical foundation serves as a guide for the stakeholders to understand how education will be altered or improved.
Since we had already talked about foundations, the structures, and the policy or the law, binds comes next. So before that, what is law? Law is a system of rules and regulation by which society functions efficiently and harmoniously. The legal systems protect the rights and responsibilities of both individuals and groups. And this ensures that social and economic interaction are conducted smoothly and peacefully. So there are many different types of law after this. So all types of law have far-reaching effects and help to shape politics, economy, and society in numerous ways. So next is we're going to tackle about the 8 types of law. But first is the criminal law. It mainly concerns with the law enforcement agencies. So this law involves crimes such as murder, theft, assault, robbery, and arson. Our second one is the corporate law. So corporate law is the system of criminal justice that makes sure businesses adhere to local and federal regulations for conducting business legally. So from the word itself, corporate, so it involves business or corporation. So third one is the international law. So it is also known as public international law and law of nations. So it is a set of rules, norms, and standards generally accepted in relation between nations. So this law exists in the relation between nations. So the fourth one is commercial law. It is sometimes called trade law or business law. So it is a body of law that regulates the conduct of persons, merchants, and businesses who are engaged in trade, sales, and commerce. So the fifth one is the family law. So from the word itself, family, it is a legal practice area that focuses on issues involving family relationships, such as marriage, adoption, divorce, and child custody, among others. So the sixth one is the constitutional law. It is a body of law which defines the role, powers, and structures of different entities within a state. So namely executive, parliament or legislature, and judiciary, as well as the basic rights of citizens. So the seventh one, or the second to the last, is the labor law. It is a legislation specifying responsibilities and rights in employment. So in this law, it's particular the responsibilities of the employer and the rights of the employee. And the last one is the intellectual property law. It deals with laws to protect and enforce rights of the creators and owners of inventions, writing, music, designs, and other works, known as the intellectual property. Okay, so that is all about the law, the nature of the law, and its typology. So that's it. So law is indeed complicated yet useful in our daily lives. So how about educational jurisprudence? So our beloved guest speakers, would you like to introduce to us the sources of Philippine educational jurisprudence? Okay, Ms. Rachel, go on first and to be followed by Senator Ms. Diaz.
Okay, hello everyone. And for today, I will going to discuss about the sources of Philippine educational jurisprudence. First, we have the Constitution. The 1987 Philippine Constitution is the present constitution used for today. A constitution is a set of fundamental legal political rules that are binding on everyone in a state, including ordinary lawmaking institutions, concern the structure and operation of the institution of government, political principles, and the right of citizens. Third, are based on widespread public legitimacy. Fourth, are harder to change than ordinary laws because they are 2/3 of majority vote or a referendum is needed. Fifth one is, as a minimum, meet the internationally recognized criteria for a democratic system in terms of representation of human rights. The next one is the statutes. A statute is a written legislation enacted by a state or federal legislature. Statutes lay out broad legal principles that courts apply to specific situations. A statute can prohibit an action, command an action, make a proclamation, or establish government institution to help society. An example of this is the Republic Act 10533, Republic Act 7877, and also the Education Act of 1982 or the Batas Pambansa 232. Then the third one is the case law or jurisprudence. The body of case law on a given issue is known as jurisprudence. A case is a decision made by the judge or justice of the peace after all parties to a dispute have been heard. And case law differs from other types of law in that it is based on judicial decisions rather than constitution, legislation, or regulation. Jurisprudence, on the other hand, is a study of legal philosophy, theory, and perspective, which is a significant part of the intellectual life of law centers. The word jurisprudence comes from the Latin word jurisprudentia, which means the science of knowledge of law. And these are the examples of case law or jurisprudence.
Okay, so let's first talk about regulatory law. So regulatory law refers to law promulgated by an executive branch agency under a delegation from a legislature. Contrasts, to statutory law promulgated by the legislative branch and common law or case law promulgated by the judicial branch. So examples of regulatory laws are the Republic Act 9344, also known as Juvenile Justice and Welfare System of Act 6th Act of 2006, and Republic Act 7610, which is also known as the Special Protection of Children Against Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act. Next one is ordinance. So ordinance is a law set forth by a governmental authority, specifically a municipal regulation, enacted by the local legislative council, authorizing the local chief executive in behalf of the local government unit, or also known as LGU, to exercise the power of eminent domain or pursue expropriation proceedings over a particular private party. So examples of ordinance in a barangay is for the barangay ordinance number 2000, which states that all garbage must be properly segregated at source. Only properly segregated garbage will be collected by the garbage contractor of the barangay. Next one is legal opinion. So in law, legal opinion is in certain jurisdictions a written explanation by a judge or group of judges that accompanies an order ruling in any case, laying out the rationale and legal principles for the ruling. So take note that the legal opinion letter must use appropriate terminology, which is an opinion should be written in clear and precise terms. An opinion should include accurate legal terminology where necessary. An opinion should deal appropriately with medical or other expert terminology. Lastly, let's talk about resolution. So resolution is merely a declaration of the sentiment or opinion of a law-making body on a specific matter. In law, it is written motion adopted by a deliberative body. A simple resolution deals with matters entirely within the prerogative of one house of Congress, such as adopting or receiving its own rules. A simple resolution is not considered by the other chamber and is not sent to the President for his signature. Like concurrent resolution, it has no effect and force of a law.
Okay, thank you for that, guest speakers. That is very informative. So let's proceed to our third question, which is what is legal underpinnings Philippine education? So guest speakers, can you tell more about it?
So under the legal underpinnings of Philippine education is what we call educational structure. Now, we ask ourselves, what is educational structure? So this is the study of methods of training and teaching and their effectiveness and of the problems experienced in learning formal material. In particular, the study of how to help people, especially children, with learning problems to overcome their difficulties. So we have Executive Order number 94, which is reorganizing the different executive departments, bureaus, offices, and agencies of the government of the Republic of the Philippines, making certain readjustments of personnel and reallotments of funds in connection therewith and for other purposes. Okay, another one is we have the Presidential Decree number 1397, series of 1978, section 2, which states that every minister shall be assisted by one career deputy minister unless otherwise provided for by law or by directive of the President or Prime Minister and one political deputy minister. Third is the Higher Education Act of 1994, also known as Republic Act 7722. So this is an act creating the Commission on Higher Education, appropriating funds, therefore, and for other purposes. We have another one, which is the Republic Act 7796, or also known as the Technical Education and Skills Development Act of 1994.
One of the legal underpinnings of Philippine education is educational policies. Educational policies are the principles and the policy decisions that influence the area of education, as well as the collection of laws and rules that control the operation of education system. The first one is the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001, an updated Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, which aimed to close student achievement gaps by providing all students with a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education. Simpson et al. 2004 stated that No Child Left Behind, or NCLB Act, is potentially the most significant education initiative to have been enacted in decades. Okay, the next one is Adopt a School Project, or RA 8525, which aid in the generation of education investments and support outside of traditional funding and the national budget. Hodge 1988 states that Adopt a School program provides useful motivational activities. The next one is the Preschool Program, which is a program that provides training for 5-year-olds before they formally enter grade 1. A Bolon 2010 showed that the emergence of daycare centers in the country proved that the state's deepening commitment to uphold early childhood education. Next, the Philippine-Australian Project in Basic Education, or PROBE, which seeks to strengthen English, science, and mathematical education at the public elementary and secondary levels. That is according to Beasley and Butler 2002. Next is the localization and Digestion of curriculum. This one makes the curriculum more learner-focused and enhance creativity and innovation at the school level and heighten the relevance of learning. Nelson and Parchoma 2018 emphasize the need for the development of a more specific competence for the teaching to indigenous people or diverse culture. Okay, next one is the Lingua Franca project, which aims to define and implement a national bridging program from the vernacular, which is Tagalog, Ilocano, or Cebuano, to Filipino and later to English. Then, the DepEd Memorandum 71 series of 2006, which is a child-friendly school system, or CFSS, at the elementary and secondary levels. This is an institution that recognizes and respects the range of rights of children, and not just their rights to be educated, but also the rights and values they need to learn. Then the Batas Pambansa Bilang 232, which established the rights, duties, and obligation of those in the educational community, or the stakeholders, which comprise parents, students, teachers, principals, and non-academic staff, and etc. Then we have the House Bill number 1378. We also have the Magna Carta for teachers and also for students. The Magna Carta for students seeks to provide measure that ensures the students are be able to exercise their rights to organize and the right to participate in policy making, the right of academic freedom, and the right to free expression and information, which also stated in the Republic Act 7079, otherwise known as Campus Journalism Act of 1991. Then we have Brigada Escuela. The National School Maintenance Week, also known as the Brigada Escuela, is an annual activity led by DepEd where everyone in the school community, including the private sector, work together to prepare school for the opening of the classes. And then we have Alternative Learning System, which aims to open more educational opportunities for Filipino citizens of different interests, capabilities, or demographic characteristics, socio-economic regions, and status, as well as addressing the needs of marginalized groups. These are intended to out-of-school youths and adults who are 16 or older and beyond basic school age, that means basic literacy skills, which is reading, writing, and simple computation. And lastly, we have increased public access. In this way, the problems and suggestions of ordinary citizens through text messaging, emails, letters, phone, through a weekly radio program, and by the curriculum, and in solving particular problem of public and private schools.
So now we're on the last part of the legal underpinnings of Philippine education. It is the curriculum and instruction. So curriculum is the content that students are expected to learn, while the instruction is a planned interaction between instructors and the students that hopefully results in a desirable learning. So let's talk about the revisions that made in the basic education curriculum. So first, it is the National Elementary School Curriculum, or the NESC, the 1983 to 2002. It was considered the first research-based curriculum in the country. So in a series of consultations, seminars, and workshops, the curriculum experts identified the different contents, skills, and values that needed to be learned by our elementary students. They called it competencies. So mastery learning was emphasized in this curriculum. So a child must be able to acquire the required competencies with at least 75% mastery. In other words, a child must be able to answer at least 7 out of the 10 questions in a formative test. So next is the new secondary education curriculum, or the NSEC 1991 to 2002. So it was characterized as cognitive, affective, manipulative based, consisting of 8 subject areas. It includes English, Filipino, social studies, physical education, health, music, or PEHM, or then technology and home economics, values education, science, and mathematics are programmed in a 400 minutes daily schedule from first year to fourth year. So since the curriculum development is a never-ending process, less than a year later, on June 12, 2000, a new curriculum, or the revised BEC, or the Basic Education Curriculum, was signed into law. So the revised Basic Education Curriculum, or called as the RBEC 2002 to 2010, it was based on a 16-year study starting in 1986, according to Secretary of Education Raul Roco, upon the recommendation of the Philippine Commission on Educational Reforms, or PCER. Executive Order number 46 was passed for the implementation of RBEC 2002. So according to Raul Roco, the restructuring of the curriculum is a part of an ongoing effort to improve the quality of learning. We are focusing on the basic of improving literacy and numeracy while inculcating values across learning areas to make it dynamic. So he furthered that the 2002 BEC, or the Basic Education Curriculum, is a restructuring and not a sweeping change of the elementary and secondary curricula. So the curriculum doesn't totally change. It just have a slight modifications with emphasis to rubrics or student performance as basis of grading system. So in this feature are required to prepare their syllabus based on the objective of the revised basic education, a basic curriculum. Among the silent features of the revised basic education curriculum was its desire to overcome an overcrowded curriculum. The RBEC resulted in the decongestion of the curriculum with only 5 learning areas. So it includes the 4 core subjects and 1 experiential area. So the 4 core subjects is the Filipino, English, Math, and Science. While in the experiential area, it includes Makabayan, which includes social studies, technology, and livelihood education, MAPE. So in these coupled areas, actual experiences of the students were considered. So now let's proceed to the medium of instruction of RBEC. So the DepEd bilingual policy, DepEd Order number 52, series of 1987, which is the policy on bilingual education, was considered in the delivery of the curriculum. So English will be the medium of instruction for subjects like math, science, English, and PLE, while Filipino is the medium of instruction for component areas of Makabayan, which includes MAPE, values of education, Araling Panipunan, and Filipino. So next is the secondary education curriculum, or the understanding by the design model of 2010, which was developed by J. Mactenghe and Grant Wiggins. So Wiggins and Mactenghe 2005 described understanding by design through 3 stages, which is the stage 1 is the identify desired result, stage 2 is the determine acceptable evidence, and stage 3 is the plan learning experiences and instruction. So lastly, it is the enhanced basic education curriculum, or K-12. So Senator Messias already discussed this curriculum a while ago, so which is the K-12 program covers kindergarten and 12 years of basic education. So I'm gonna highlight some additional information and citation from reliable sources. So according to Dizon et al., the K-12 implemented to enhance the educational system of the country in order to accelerate the mutual recognition of Filipino graduates and professionals across the world. So through this, we are able to equip the skills or the education needed to be competent enough, not just locally, but also internationally. So it is added by Abueva 2019, implementing the K-12 program in the Philippine curriculum of basic education was the key to the growth of our country. So although the government has faced many problems as it implements the program over several years, it has been a necessary improvement as it has been critical to the success of our nation to increase the quality of our education. So that's it. We already tackled the 3 questions for today's talk show. I would like to thank our guest speakers, Senator Misias, Professor Kilale, and also to Ms. Rolian and Ms. Robana. And most especially to the viewers. I hope that you learned about the historical and legal basis of Philippine education. Once again, this is Ellen Show. Bye-bye!
Here she is now, Ellen Degeneres.